why don't I go ahead and share some of the stuff about election night itself, because I think that's the real trade. For now, I think almost the jitters have been smaller than expected. I'm not sure how to pop that up. I've got the strategy kind of presentation, just a bit on like the actual day itself and the breakdown. If you look back to the Brexit vote, I don't think traders were quite prepared for how the vote would come in. It wasn't just like a light switch flipped and suddenly we had the results. They stream in from different parts of the world or different parts of the country at different times. And the people who are ready for the different ridings coming in, and in the United States case, the different states will be the ones who are going to be ready. So if you look at the map, we all know that it's very difficult for Trump to win. And on this map that I have here shows the states breakdown, and basically all the ones that are shown in brown are close, and Trump has to run the table on all of them virtually. There are a few other ways to get there, but that's basically the way he needs to get there. If we look at the polls lately, as I was mentioning, there's this momentum for polls. This is Real Clear Politics average polls. You see Trump up from just in a sharp line up from about 43 to 45. So that momentum is real. It's there, and we'll see more of it probably in the next day or so. And just here, quick look at what's priced in. Clinton. Sorry, some of these are out of order. Clinton is priced in around 71% on the odds. Trump 70-30 is really where the betting markets are right now. The Senate is a little bit more skewed towards Democrat, and that's going to be important as well. And then Republicans are around 95% likely to hold the House, but are likely to lose some ground as well, unless this momentum we're seeing to Trump comes across the board there. So just on the election day itself, on November 8th, polls open around 6, 7 a.m. Eastern, depending on the state. There was always that talk on election day of fraud. And that's something I wouldn't worry too much about. I mean, maybe a little more in this election, but it's always there almost everywhere. These reports that kind of go quickly viral during that day. I wouldn't make too much about it. And I also wouldn't say, the thinking is, traditional thinking is that it'll be quiet on election day. Markets could be a little bit more lively than you think. The rule of thumb is to fade it, but it is a tricky time to trade, and it's probably one that's best to sit out in that run up to the election. You talked about when it will be announced. The very first thing you can watch for is turnout. There are always anecdotal reports of high turnout. Every election, everywhere, and it turns out that's not always true. So I'd be wary of that. High turnout in general would favor Clinton. She's going to be the person that's going to have a more difficult time getting her supporters to come out. There are trust issues that have arisen. No one really loves Hillary Clinton that much. So high turnout favors her. Also watch for splits. America breaks everything down by race. So Hispanic voters, Black voters, definitely more likely to vote Democrat. So if you see high turnout there, especially Hispanics, it makes Florida much more likely to go for Clinton. And then that makes it virtually impossible for Trump to win. Weather can skew as well. We may have seen that in the Brexit vote. It's tough because America's a very big state to break down, and you have different weather in different places, but you can try to find a bit of a skew there if there's some big weather event. But in general, you want to wait for the polls to close. The first one to close 7 Eastern. That's midnight GMT, midnight, midnight in London as well. And remember, we're changing clocks in North America this weekend, so double check all your clocks and timelines. Florida 7, that's the first indication. That, to me, will be the biggest intraday move. The exit polls we get from that, the first indications we get from Florida is going to be the single biggest 200, 300, 400 pip move potentially on the election and how that swung. New Hampshire closes at 7 as well. North Carolina and Ohio. So Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, if Clinton gets one of those, it's all over in my mind. They'll close at 7:30, 30 minutes later. You'll see networks wait a long time to close it, but markets will move much sooner. So if she can get one of those, it's all over. And also note that the final polls, if Trump is in it, though, if he wins those, Nevada will be the really last tough state for him to win that he needs to win. That's at 10 Eastern. So that's really the span of time. And as those polls come in, they don't come in right away at 7 or at 10. And then at 11, you have like California and Hawaii and Oregon, but those are definitely going Democrat. So we'll know by then, but that oftentimes the networks might wait till they get some results from that, but that's a mistake. Markets will move sooner. An important thing to note is that states are highly correlated. So if you see Trump do well in Florida, it probably means he'll do well in Ohio. There isn't this big skew between states. So if you see it in New Hampshire or Florida, it likely means he's doing well right across the country, and that's why markets will move quick. So don't wait for networks to call it. You have to be quicker than network. By the time networks call it, there's almost like a sell the fact sort of trade. And we saw it on Brexit. There's this denial that will go around for a while, and then it settles in, and you have a trade almost where you can fade the initial move when it gets called. There'll be maybe one final spike once it gets called, and you can fade that and then back into the trend. For Trump, again, it's very difficult to win. He'll need one of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Minnesota, or Wisconsin, and those are all very, very tough for him to win. And that's why markets are giving it still a low probability, but I think those jitters are just picking up. There's the map again. We'll race through just a few quick trades. If Trump wins, I mean, we talked about this before, high risk aversion. And I think what we've seen in markets on Monday or Tuesday are those jitters. It's yen strength, Swiss franc strength, and even euro strength are the three trades to watch, all against the US dollar and everything else. Stocks in big trouble if Trump wins. We're talking about for 2 weeks afterwards. Mexican dollar, as we know, very vulnerable. CAD, I think, is more vulnerable than markets expect. Bank of Canada will cut rates. NAFTA will be up in the air. Commodities, I think, will suffer. There will be a lot of talk about gold longs on uncertainty, but gold probably doesn't perform as well as people think in that sort of uncertainty. Oil shorts are probably a better trade in commodities. Clinton wins. Relief rally. I think dollar yen is the spot to spot it in the FX market. It should be strong. Commodity currency against yen, I mean, like Mexican peso yen, probably the ideal trade. That's an expensive trade to be in. And the other thing to watch on election night is how close it is. It's not enough for Clinton to win if she wins very narrowly, and the results are unclear. Half of Americans polled are worried about violence on election night. So there's a real fear there. If that doesn't happen, even if it's close, I think those fears are far overstated, but that fear is real, and that fear trickles into the market to some extent. But a clear Clinton win is good news for risk trades. It just means, like you said, Ross, it's the status quo. I know how to trade the status quo. You know how to trade the status quo. Trump, we're not trading the status quo anymore, and that makes people go to the sidelines at first. And then just a final few thoughts on between then and now, because this is far from over, even we'll be 5 days from the election. There's leaks every day from the Podesta emails. They're out. FBI investigation ongoing. And even rumors are moving the market. Remember the 5th of November, hackers, anarchists sort of love that day, the V for Vendetta and that parliament bombing in the UK or plot. That's a huge day for leaks and bombshells. That's coming up on Saturday, so keep an eye on the weekend news. And I think everything else now falls to the wayside. I mean, obviously something like the Bank of England is important for pound, but more broadly, I think we saw it on the Fed decision. The Fed decision was what, 20 pips yesterday? Same as non-farm payrolls. I'd almost fade any move in any direction on anything that isn't election news. And finally, it's also important to know that 50 million Americans vote before election day. So even if something hits at the last minute, it might be too late, especially Florida votes heavy early. And that's roughly 1/5 of the public will have already voted. So that's it. The aftermath. Look for, in general, I think they'll be kicking and streaming in stocks either way. You always have half of the country disappointed, or roughly half. You saw it after Obama was reelected. Maybe see 2 weeks, maybe a month, probably through the end of November, because they're Fed jitters as well. If Clinton wins even, I think stocks will still be vulnerable. Definitely if Trump wins. But I think the trade later is to buy the dollar in December, dollar yen, and risk trades on the idea that there will be high deficit spending no matter what. Sorry, that's supposed to say 2017, high deficit spending in 2017. So That's my quick view on election night.